Basically, we're doing an introduction to what is iNaturalist, which is the tool that we'll be using, the platform that we'll be using for the BioBlitz, and then also a little introduction to BioBlitzes themselves. So I'm going to share my screen here. There you go. Assume that you can all see that. So yeah, I'll start with a little introduction to iNaturalist, including actually like showing how to make observations in the app itself and how to, or if you're going to use a real camera, how to get your photos up onto iNaturalist. And then I'll go into kind of the logistics of BioBlitzing itself. So yeah, I'm at the California Academy of Sciences. I co-direct the Center for Biodiversity and Community Science. And basically the role of my department within the research division of the Academy is to design events and campaigns to get people to make and share observations of their local biodiversity. And then we use the resulting data to help inform science and management and policy, conservation, things like that. And a lot of other people use the data as well. And specifically, we are prepping for the BioBlitz that's next weekend. The project runs the 18th and the 19th next weekend. The 18th is more of a kind of like a BioBlitz on your own, around your house, around the areas you want to. And then the 19th is when we're kind of going to come together and do some kind of group BioBlitzing throughout Sea Ranch. But hopefully this will help you feel prepared to BioBlitz, for the BioBlitz itself. And this also gives you a chance to do a little practicing in the next week if you feel like you want to practice using the app ahead of the BioBlitz itself. So the platform that we'll be making these observations with, collecting data with, is iNaturalist. And iNaturalist is a platform. It's both a free app and a website. And it's really designed to let people share their observations of nature, kind of create an official record that, you know, this species was found at this particular place at this particular time. And it also allows people to just share what they're seeing with other naturalists and get help with identifications as well. And the most common way that people use iNaturalist, especially if you're kind of new to the platform, is through the app itself. And so the app is basically, it's a pretty simple design once you get used to it, once you kind of know what you're doing and what buttons to push and things like that. And using the app is what probably most of us will use during the BioBlitz, unless you want to bring like a real camera, if you really want to like capture faraway birds or things like that. And the great thing about iNaturalist is that you don't need to know what it is you're taking a photo of. Taking a photo is basically how you're collecting data. All you really need to do is take a clear photo. That's your role, is to find things, take clear photos of those things, to turn them into observations. You don't need to know what those things are. And there's multiple ways that you actually can learn what those things are and how that identification gets attached to that record. So basically, when you use the app, you take a photo of an organism or evidence of that organism. So you can see in this example, I have a photo of a shell that I found. The organism is clearly no longer in that shell, but it's evidence that that organism was there. So you take a photo. You can take multiple photos if you want. You want to take clear photos. When you take that photo in the app, iNaturalist automatically records the date and the time and the location. So where you were when you saw this thing and what day and time it was when you saw this thing as well. So it's kind of attaching kind of that occurrence information to that photo that you take. If you have a data connection while you're using the app, in that second screen right there, you can see there's that unknown view suggestions underneath the photo. You can tap that box, and iNaturalist has some computer vision or artificial intelligence built into it. And as long as you have a connection, iNaturalist will actually give you suggestions on what it thinks this thing is that you just took a photo of. And it's based both visually on what the photo itself looks like, and also what has kind of been seen around you or is expected to be seen around you. So you can see in the third screen, once I tap that unknown view suggestions, iNaturalist, if it is pretty confident in its suggestions, it will always give you kind of a higher level suggestion first. So you can see up at the top, it says, we're pretty sure it's in this genus, Diodora. And then it gives me some options underneath it that are all visually similar to my photo and are expected nearby. You can see that very first suggestion is actually in the genus that it says it's pretty sure it's in, Diodora aspera, this rough keyhole limpet. It gives me a couple, another limpet, another clam, another mollusk that has been seen in the area as well. In this case, though, like I knew what this was. That first photo looks really like what I took. So I tapped that rough keyhole limpet as my suggestion. And then after you include your suggestion in there or include that ID in there, once you hit that check box, that little circle check box, or share if you're using an iPhone, that sends it to the iNaturalist platform itself. And so once it's sent to iNaturalist, this is like where the power of iNaturalist really comes in. So iNaturalist really at its core is a social network for people who are interested in the natural world. So there's folks who are like experts in things that are on iNaturalist. There are amateur experts, like, you know, if you're a birder and you've taught yourself all the birds, you know, iNaturalist is a place for you. Or lots of people have taught themselves all their plants or all their local mushrooms or things like that. Or, you know, people who are just kind of learning about nature, want to know what that interesting flower is in their backyard, or they find a spider in their bathtub and they want to know what that is. There's all sorts of people that use iNaturalist. Just how everyone can make observations on iNaturalist. Everyone can also help make identifications as well. So you don't actually have to be an actual expert. iNaturalist really respects the fact that like lots of people have lots of knowledge about lots of things. And so everyone can help with the identification process as well. So once you upload your observation to iNaturalist, the platform, everyone can see that observations and they can help either confirm that identification or help refine it. Like if I maybe had just put the genus, they can help me get it down to species, or they can also correct misidentifications. So here's that exact same observation. This is now on the website itself, the iNaturalist website. And you can see that it has my photos that I took. It has the date and the time that I saw it, the location where I saw it. And in this case, so it has my identification, that rough keyhole limpet. Someone else has come in and agreed that this is a rough keyhole limpet, and they actually left me a comment. And they said, oh, this is very unusual for a bay find. So it's not usual to find this species in the San Francisco Bay. So it gave me a little more information about it as well. And in iNaturalist, as long as there's evidence, so you have a photo, you can also record sounds in iNaturalist too. So you have to have evidence of that organism. And as long as the date and the location look good, once we have agreement on the species, this is considered what we call a research grade observation. You can see up at the top where the species is, the rough keyhole limpet, it's got that little green flag that says research grade. So this is now a research grade observation because it has evidence, the location looks good, the time looks good, and people agree on what species it is. Oops, back over here. A couple other things I just want to point out really quickly before I go into actually showing you how to make an observation on the phone itself is there's a couple other fields in the observation. In this screenshot, the left one is an Android phone and the right one is an iPhone. So you can see they look a little different, but they do have kind of the same information in the observation itself. And two things that I want to point out is they have these fields for location visibility and for captive or cultivated organisms itself. And this is important. The location visibility is important if you are like, maybe you're making lots of observations right around your house and you don't want people to see like your cluster of observations right around your house. You can choose to obscure the location. You can also make it private. We recommend obscuring things. Private means that like your location is not shared anywhere. And so your observations are basically kind of like floating out in the ether, only you know where you made them. Obscuring it puts it in kind of like a 22-kilometer box. So you can see where you made it, but everyone else just knows it's in this giant box. And so iNaturalist actually automatically obscures any species that are rare or threatened or endangered. And so those will automatically be obscured. You can still see the coordinates if you observe a rare, endangered, or threatened species, but no one else can. And then if you personally choose to obscure any other of your own observations, you can see where you made them, but nobody else can. And the captive or cultivated button is just important if you're taking a photo of something that you know is basically being cared for by a human. So we kind of talk like the 3 Ps. If you take a photo of people, pets, or potted plants, those should definitely be marked captive or cultivated. Basically, it's letting other folks who might use this data know that this species is actually not occurring like wild by itself, that it's actually being tended by someone who's actually helping it live where it is. So things that are planted, for example, or animals in a zoo, fish in an aquarium, pets, things like that. You would want to mark those as captive or cultivated. And here's the box of the location visibility. Your choices when you tap that location visibility. Open is fine for most things, especially if you're not making observations in a place that you care if anyone sees where those observations are made. When we BioBlitz next weekend, you can probably keep most of your locations as open, unless, again, like if you're BioBlitzing like right around your house and you don't want to have a whole bunch of observations that are tied to you right around your house, obscuring them is fine as well. So now really quickly, I want to show you what it actually looks like to make an observation, because having the screenshots is one thing, but actually seeing it is a little easier. So what I am going to do is I'm going to stop sharing this screen, and I have actually joined the Zoom with my phone. So I'm going to share from my phone. Let me do that really quick. All right, so now you're seeing some of the apps on my phone. I'm going to tap that iNaturalist button right there. And so when I log into iNaturalist, because I use iNaturalist for my work and everything like that, I have a whole list of observations I've already made. You can see I've made 21,000 observations on iNaturalist in the course of the 10 years or so that I've been using it. And 3,600 species. And I can go and I can scroll through and I can see, kind of all the observations that I've made in my app itself. But the main thing I use the app for is to make observations. Usually if I want to like drill into looking at observations, I'll go onto the website, but just for making observations, I like to use my phone. And so you can see on the Android down here, my phone's an Android. I have that little circle with a plus button down in the corner. So I'm going to tap that. And you can see iNaturalist is giving me some options here. It says, do you want to make an observation that has no media at all? So this would be an observation that you make that would have no evidence. But, if you saw a really amazing bird fly by and you just want to record that you saw that bird, you didn't get a photo, you didn't get a sound recording, but you want to record that you saw that, you could choose to make an observation with no media. And that's fine. Most people use the take the photo option, but you can also use photos that are already in your phone's gallery with that choose image button. If you choose an image that's already in your phone, iNaturalist will take the metadata that is associated with that photo. So the day you took that photo, the time you took that photo, the location you took that photo. So as long as you have location information attached to your photos, it'll actually use the information that's on the photo and not like where you are currently. And a lot of people like to take a bunch of photos, like instead of actually using the app during a BioBlitz, they might just take a bunch of photos using their phone and then sit down later and turn those photos into observations one at a time. And all the right information is still attached to that photo. You can see you can also record a sound using this. And so if you're listening to a bird sing, but you can't see it at all, go ahead, you could record it and use that as your evidence of that organism. Or I could choose a sound that I already have saved on my phone. In this case, I am going to take a photo. So I'm going to press that middle button right there. All right, so now you're seeing my computer and slowly, here we go. So I went out this morning into my garden and I found these little calendula flowers that are just growing wild as weeds in my garden. And so if I was going to make an observation of this, I might want to zoom in and be like, okay, let's get a good photo of this flower to start off with. And so when I take the photo, here iNaturalist shows me the photo and it says, is this okay? Or do you want to retry it? If it was really blurry, I'd hit retry, but this one's going to be good enough for my demonstration. So I'm going to say, okay. And you can see iNaturalist automatically starts to make an observation out of this. It has the date, the time, the location of where I am. If I wanted to take another photo, you can see that little plus button with the camera next to the little thumbnail of the photo I just took. I can hit that. If I want to take another photo, and I could take a photo, I could choose an image, I could record a sound as well, but in this case, maybe I want to take another photo. And maybe this time I want to get the whole plant in there. It's fine to have your hands in there to help with focus if you want, so it's not focusing on my background. But maybe I want to make sure people can see like the the leaves of this plant also. So I'm going to take a photo with the whole plant in there, and I'm going to hit OK. So now I have 2 photos, and this is where I can hit that what did you see view suggestions. When I tap that, so because I have a data connection, iNaturalist is like, we're pretty sure it's in this genus, Calendula. We're pretty sure it's a marigold. And here's some options. Maybe it's a field marigold. That's the only one that's in the same genus, so that's often a good choice. The other ones they're showing me are different, are plants in different genera. But if I wanted to, what I can also do is, you can see there's a few other buttons here. So I can tap that field marigold button, for example. And now what it's going to do, it's actually going to bring me to a page about field marigolds, where I can look at other photos that other people have taken of field marigolds. I can learn a little bit more about it. I can see whether people have seen it. This compare button is also really nice, because what it's going to do is going to bring up my photo that I just took and show me confirmed photos of this species. So I can look at it and be like, oh yeah, that flower looks really similar to the one I just took, kind of go through and scroll. I can look at my other photo, compare that way as well. So lots of information that you can get if you're trying to decide on a species. If I was really unsure, if I was like, I'm not even sure it's in this genus and I don't know really how to tell, I could always, up here in the species search button, I can tap that and I can say, I know this is a plant at least. And that's totally fine too. You can see it gives me plants like Kingdom Plantae. And that's totally fine also. If you're looking through the suggestions and you're like, I really don't know how to pick the right suggestion, but I know that this is a beetle, or I know that this is a plant, or I know that this is a bird. It's great to at least give it a high level identification, because then once you upload it, the people who know their plants or who know their birds of the area will be able to find it much faster than if you leave it totally blank. So it's always good to put something in if you're not going to pick one of the suggestions. But in this case, I'm going to say, yeah, I think this is a field marigold. That top suggestion right there looks right to me. I click that. So now I have an ID that says it's a field marigold. It has the date and the time. It has the location. And I can hit that check mark down at the bottom to save it. And now you can see it's telling me, okay, here's your observation, just waiting to upload it. And once I hit that upload button, it gets shared with the iNaturalist community. So that's generally making an observation. I'm going to stop sharing this right here. Making an observation using the app, pretty simple once you get used to the kind of that workflow. If you wanted to use a real camera, I'm going to show you really quickly how you would upload your observations using a real camera. So this right here is the iNaturalist website. This is my view when I log in. It's telling me my username. I'm Kestrel on iNaturalist. That's my username. It is kind of like a social media feed. I follow places, like I follow the California coastline as a place because I'm a marine biologist, and so I like to see observations and I can help ID those ones. I can follow people, people I know who are making observations. I can see their most recent stuff. So it is kind of like a social media feed in that way. But if I took a bunch of photos using a real camera and I now wanted to get them into iNaturalist, when you log into the iNaturalist website, there's always this upload button up in the top right corner here. So I would click that. And it basically brings me to this blank upload page where you can drag and drop photos. So I just have some photos here on my other screen that I'm going to drag into this page. Let me grab them. So I literally just dragged and dropped them onto here. And what iNaturalist is doing is looking at that photo for any associated metadata that's already on that photo. The camera that I took these with had GPS, so it actually has a location on there, which is why the location is coming up as Sonoma County on all of these. It has the date and the time that I took these as well. And this has the same functionality as the phone does, that it has artificial intelligence on here. But what you might want to do before you start putting IDs on things is that if any of these photos were actually of the same organism, really easy to combine them together. Like these 2 butterfly photos right here are actually the same butterfly. So I would pick this one. I would literally just, oh, there's that photo of that one. You can literally just drag this one on top of this one and drop it. And now I have one observation with 2 photos in it. So easy to combine on the website itself. The artificial intelligence works the same. Load suggestion, when you hit that species name, it's like, we're pretty sure it's in this genus. It's only giving me one suggestion for what it thinks it is, and that's actually the right choice. It is a silvery blue butterfly, so I can just click that, and I can go through and do it with my other ones. This one, it says we're not confident enough to make a recommendation, but here are our top suggestions. So it's not super confident in what it's suggesting to me. It's why it didn't give me like a genus first. But again, you can go through and look at these and see if these match. This actually is a turkey tail mushrooms or a fungus, so I can click that. If you were using a camera that didn't have a location button, you can always click that location and it will show you if it's showing me like, here's where you took this photo, over here where this point is. If you didn't have a GPS, it would just take you to a map of the world, and you could just zoom in and drop a pin where you took that photo. In this case also too, if I wanted to do it to a whole bunch of them, I could actually select all of these right here. And then over here, there's this thing that says editing for observations now. So if you have multiple selected, you can use this thing over here on the left side. And if I wanted to just give everything one location and give it like a really big bubble, like they were all seen somewhere in here, I could click that location button again, and I could say, okay, like instead of actually assigning individual points to all of these, I'm going to say I took them here and they were all within this bubble. And I could give them all the same location in a bubble as well. So especially if you don't have a camera that has a GPS, this is kind of a faster way to get a location attached to it. All right, so that is making observations. I'm going to switch back over to my presentation now, so we can talk more about bioblitzing and also a little bit about how the data are used as well on iNaturalist. So once you make and share that observation on iNaturalist and you upload it, you are contributing basically to this data set of when and where species occur globally around the world. And this screenshot was relatively recent. So you can see there's about 180 million observations on iNaturalist already that have been made by about 3 million people. And so you're adding to this amazing data set of where species are found in the world right now, which is really important. It's actually like the most comprehensive biodiversity data set anywhere is on iNaturalist right now. And really importantly, those research grade observations, the ones where there's an agreement on what species it is also shared with some other databases. The one that I'm going to talk about is GBIF, which is the Global Biodiversity Information Facility. Basically, it's just a database of species occurrence records. Like this species was seen at this place on this date by this person. So that's the kind of the data that iNaturalist has. It's also the same data that a museum like mine, the California Academy of Sciences, holds in our specimens as well. And so GBIF is a great place to look at species occurrence through time. So, specimens that were collected 50 years ago, 100 years ago, 200 years ago, as long as that information has been digitized, that's up on GBIF too for museums around the world and universities around the world. eBird data is also on GBIF. So it's a really comprehensive collection of where species have occurred in the past and where they occur right now. And because of that, so yeah, really quickly, as you can see, so here's a specimen from the Cal Academy. If you look at that label, it's going to say, here's what this is. It's a, California poppy collected by this person at this place on this date, which is literally the same information on an iNaturalist observation. Here's a California poppy. The only difference is that your evidence, one is an actual specimen, the other is a photo. But the other information is the same. It's all species occurrence records found on this date by this person, date, time, person who found it, and what species it is. So we can use that data together kind of in this big data sort of way. And so people are constantly using GBIF data. And when you download a data set from GBIF, it comes with an associated kind of like URL that lets people know what data you use to like do your analysis or write your paper. So we can actually track all of the iNaturalist data that get used and written and included in papers that people are writing. So just last year in 2023, there were over 800 papers published using iNaturalist data. So again, these are people who have big questions about, where species were found in the past, where they're found today, like how that's changing with climate change, things like that. And we know that they downloaded from GBIF and they used iNaturalist data in their analysis. And so kind of this big data side of iNaturalist, like where species are globally, is one of the most important uses of the iNaturalist data. There are other really important uses too. On a kind of more zoomed in scale, we find iNaturalist data is really important for like decision making or for like land management or marine management. People who have to tend and steward places, they often use iNaturalist data. They're not writing papers about it, but they use iNaturalist data to make decisions on the ground itself. So we have a partnership with the California Department of Fish and Wildlife to share all the iNaturalist data collected in California with the state of California, just like the species and where they occurred, not like who saw them or things like that. And they can use this information in their decision making about like what places should be protected going forward. If you follow the 30 by 30 movement in California, this data is going to help inform that process. What places should be protected for biodiversity? Where are species that we care about in the state? Like, let's make sure we protect them, things like that as well. So all the data in California kind of helps at the state level in decision making around management and policy and conservation and things like that. More locally, we find a lot of like parks departments or city governments or things like that. They use iNaturalist data too. One of the things here's Sea Ranch. I took a little screenshot of Sea Ranch on this kind of watershed modeler. And, on this high level, these vegetation maps that I kind of highlighted here, like we have a lot of these vegetation maps for a lot of different places. But what these vegetation maps really tell us is like, what's the dominant vegetation type in this place? And they're often created using like satellites or LiDAR or things like that. So it's useful for people to know who have to make decisions. Okay, great. We have a whole bunch of evergreen forest, in Sea Ranch, but we also have, some developed open space, some, woody wetlands, some herbaceous wetlands, which is really important to help kind of understand like how to manage an area. But what these maps don't tell us is like, what are the actual species that are underneath that layer that we were able to pick up in the satellite image? Where are the rare, endangered, and threatened species, things like that as well. And so like this information is really important for managers, but also having all these people on the ground who are making and sharing observations of the species around them is also hugely valuable also, because this is like literally the only way you're ever going to get a comprehensive like atlas of where species are when they show up, things like that as well. So I took this is a screenshot of Sea Ranch that I just took yesterday from iNaturalist. You can see there's already 16,000 observations that have made in Sea Ranch of quite a few species. About 1,000 people have made these observations. So this is really important because you can actually drill in and look and see like what species have been found here. If you have a species that you're concerned about, you can click that one and see where they were found in Sea Ranch, things like that. And so having this really fine, detailed information is also one of the main uses of iNaturalist data that managers, land managers, marine managers, decision makers, we often find them using iNaturalist to help them make decisions about protecting species, caring for species, stewarding places, understanding where species are in the place that they take care of as well. So this is one of the other main uses of iNaturalist data. And then finally, there's also just something really cool when you have a lot of people out looking and sharing observations of species that you're bound to find things that you weren't expecting. And so there's some really fun, instances where like one observation just by itself was really important. There's actually quite a few examples of this on iNaturalist. I'm just going to show you three. So this right here is a nudibranch. As a marine biologist, I love nudibranchs. And this photo was taken by a mother and her daughter who volunteer with us. We do a lot of community science work in the tide pools along the California coast. And so they used to come out with us during low tides and help us, document species in the tide pools down kind of near Half Moon Bay. But when it's not low tide and you want to go look at marine species, what you can also do is you can go to docks, like floating docks, in San Francisco Bay or other places, other harbors, and you can lay on your belly and look under the dock and see all the things that are living on the edges of the docks. And that is tide, independent. Doesn't matter what the tide is doing. So one day, it wasn't a good low tide day. They went out to San Francisco Bay. They were looking under the docks and they saw this nudibranch and they're just like, I've never seen this thing before. They took a bunch of great photos and put it up on iNaturalist. And it turns out not only was this the first record for this species in California, this was actually the first record of this species in all of North America, that this was a species that had previously, before this, only been seen in Asia. And the really cool thing is that this woman and her daughter was in high school at the time. She really wanted to be a marine biologist. So we actually helped her write the paper. That's her, Marissa Agarwal. We helped her write the paper, kind of letting the scientific community know about this new species occurrence in San Francisco Bay. She went on to Brown University, got her degree in marine biology. I think she's now like working in Australia, studying coral reefs. So kind of just like cool, that one observation kind of really helped launch her into her pathway of being a marine biologist. And it just kind of an interesting new species occurrence that was found using iNaturalist. This little frog is very cute. There's a guy down in Colombia who at night and on his porch, he has a porch light on his house in Colombia, And he would love to go out and turn on his porch light at night and go out and photograph all the insects that were attracted to his porch light, and then all the other species that would show up to eat the insects that were attracted to his porch light. And one night he took a photo of this frog and posted it to iNaturalist because he's like, I don't know what this is. And a bunch of other people who know frogs and study frogs, they're like, ooh, we don't know what this is either. And so they literally launched an expedition to this guy's front porch and were able to collect it. And this was a species that was undescribed by science. And so they went to his front porch, they were able to collect it, and with him were able to describe this brand new, new to science species of poison frog in Colombia, which is really cool. And then also, this is just a fun story of a student, the person who's kneeling on the right down there, Prakrit, is with our curator of our ecology in the middle there, Lauren Esposito. Prakrit started coming to our BioBlitzes back when he was like 9 years old, 10 years old. His mom was like, I have this kid who's super into nature. I don't know what to do with him. So once we started holding BioBlitzes, 10 years ago, we started doing a bunch of BioBlitzes in the Bay Area. She brought him to like all of our BioBlitzes and brought him out to the tide pools with us and things like that as well. And it turns out when he got really into arachnids, especially scorpions. And so he started kind of when he was in high school, like traveling around, like looking for scorpions to photo and put up on iNaturalist. And he has discovered 2 new species. Him and his other friend, who was in high school at the time, was able to write this paper with Lauren Esposito, our curator of arachnology. He's now a student at UC Berkeley, studying scorpions and other things that he's really interested in. But species, again, like brand new, had not been discovered, had not been documented by science, found through iNaturalist, and by a high school student, which is really cool. So that's kind of like the data side of iNaturalist. How are the data used? There's the big data side. There's like the management side. And then there's like when one observation might be a really interesting discovery for some reason. And so now I'm going to get into like, what is a BioBlitz? So what are we actually doing next weekend? So basically a BioBlitz is an event where people come together, usually at one place at one time, and you try to document as many species as possible as you can, all together in that one place. There's lots of different reasons that we hold BioBlitzes. It helps create species lists. A lot of parks don't even have a species list, so this is a nice way to start kind of a species list for a park. A lot of the parks that we work with are like, we have a species list, but it was written in the 70s, and we know there's like brand new species here and things that are gone. So a lot of parks use it to update their species list. It helps managers make more informed management decisions to know what species are in the places that they're taking care of. It helps people who are going to the BioBlitz just learn more about their local biodiversity. We hear it all the time, especially when we hold BioBlitzes in San Francisco. People who have to they'll walk through a park every day on their walk to work. But once you actually give them the space and time to like slow down and really look and start to see all the things around them and look under a log and find a salamander, people are like, I had no clue we had salamanders in San Francisco. Like I walk through this park every day, but like never have I taken the time to actually look at all the species and like look for them. And so it definitely helps people learn more about local biodiversity. And what I really love about BioBlitz is it also brings people together. Lots of different reasons that people might really like a place or really care about a place. It could be because they love going on picnics there. They like walking their dog there. And some people might really love to learn about the species, but like bringing all these people who care about places together to work together to document biodiversity just helps build kind of community around that place, around nature as well. So those are kind of the reasons that we like to hold BioBlitzes. So basically the way that we hold BioBlitzes is that instead of having groups that are like, you're the bird group and you're the plant group and you're like the insect group, what we like to do instead, and we actually find we get more species found this way, is we make groups kind of just based on area. We say, this group, you're all going to go down this trail and you're going to try to find every species you can. And this group right here, you're going to go down this trail and you're going to try to find every species you can. And we actually find that, when you give folks when you tell them what they're supposed to look for, that's kind of what they only look for. And oftentimes when we have like a plant group or a bird group or an insect group, there's like a leader who knows the plants and the birds and the insects. And so one person will point them out. They'll be like, oh, here's a scrub jay. And then everyone takes a photo of that same scrub jay. And then they wait for the expert to tell them the next thing. When we do these more like you're trying to document everything you can in your area, we just usually find a lot more species. People can kind of be curious in the ways that interest them. Maybe there's someone who's like, I want to look under every log that I find, or someone who's really wants to document the flowers, or someone who really wants to look for insects on those flowers. But we find that it's a more fun way for people to share knowledge that they have. And we actually tend to document more species this way than if we have taxonomic focus groups. So we do like geography-based groups. So groups go off together, they try to document all the species they can, and then we try to come back together in the end if we can to kind of talk about what we all saw together. What can this look like? This can look like a lot of different things. We've held bioblitzes in lots of different places, city parks, out on beaches. We've held bioblitzes. We've done bioblitzes up at Sea Ranch in the tide pools. We've done bioblitzes in the Galapagos. It can look really different depending on where you are, but really it's all these people coming together to really explore species, explore nature around them all together, share information, things like that. What we'll do on Sunday is we'll all gather together in the beginning to kind of just talk about the bioblitz itself, kind of split groups up into where areas of Sea Ranch that they want to go and explore and look for species, kind of get that lay of the land. And then basically groups will head out to go to different areas, places where folks have already kind of identified some trails that they think that might be high biodiversity, stuff like that. Go out, document everything they can all together. And then there's a few different ways that we can share that information back. Sometimes the bioblitzes will try to bring everybody back together at the end of a bioblitz to talk about all the cool stuff that we saw. The great thing is too, is that we also have a bioblitz project on iNaturalist that's going to pull together everything that we saw into one place. So even if we don't have a chance to all sit back down together afterwards, we can all go and look at that project and see everything that we saw. So here's just to show you an example of a bioblitz that's already happened. This is one that we held up by Sacramento in September for California Biodiversity Day with a bunch of other agencies. But this is kind of the banner on the iNaturalist project page. It was the FEA Biodiversity Day BioBlitz. What we did on iNaturalist is we gave iNaturalist a boundary and we said, here's the boundary that we care about. And every observation that's made in this boundary during the time of our BioBlitz, we just made it for a whole day, pull into our project. So you can see, these are all the observations. You kind of see the trails that people took, the different colors, like blue are vertebrates, green are plants, orange is invertebrates, pink is fungus or lichen, things like that. And so you can kind of see where everyone went, all their observations. And then what the project does for us is it actually gives us some leaderboards. So if you are driven by competition and you want to be the person with the most observations or the person who finds the most species, you will be on the leaderboard of the project. So you can see, the kind of sort of the top 6 in each category. The project will also tell us the most observed species, like what was the species that the most people took observations of. In this case, it was this interior live oak and a California mugwort. So you can the project will bring all these observations together in one place. You don't have to join the project. You don't have to add your observation to the project. They will just automatically show up there because we have given iNaturalist a boundary and a time. And so this is our BioBlitz for next weekend. This is the Sea Ranch Bioblitz Spring 2024. You can find it on iNaturalist if you want. You can see that the project requirements, we don't have leaderboards or anything yet because it hasn't started. You can see it actually has a countdown going on right now, like for when this BioBlitz is going to start. So you can see that we basically have said like all taxa are part of this BioBlitz. We have both the Sea Ranch place and the intertidal. There's a place that kind of extends more into the intertidal that we've put together for this BioBlitz. Anyone can make observations for it. And the really important thing is that it's any observation that comes in May 18th or May 19th next weekend will become part of this project. So here's our boundary for the project. It's the full boundary of Sea Ranch, plus a little bit into the intertidal as well, because the official Sea Ranch boundary doesn't include a lot of your intertidal area. And I know Bob Van Syke wants to take folks down to the intertidal. So we're gonna there'll be some intertidal area as part of that as well. So what to do next? Basically, ahead of the BioBlitz, if you've not used iNaturalist before, you should download the iNaturalist app to your phone and make an account. Make sure you make an account before you start making observations because it's important that we have a person attached to this. If you have a chance between now and next weekend, practice making some observations of wild plants and animals. It can be literally anything. It could even be, insects that are using the plants that are like that are potted plants or things like that. So, but the idea is to try to look for wild plants and animals. But if you can practice making some observations so you feel comfortable using the app, that's great. The idea is for Saturday, May 18th, is just to BioBlitz your area, go where you want to go, BioBlitz around your house. wherever you want to do to help practice. My team, it'll be myself and I think 2 of my staff are going to be up at Sea Ranch next weekend. So anyone who wants to, we're going to meet at the Black Point public parking lot on Saturday at 3 p.m. So if you're like, I just want a little extra help knowing how to use this app ahead of the Bioblitz on the 19th, you're welcome to meet us there. We're just going to plan on Bioblitzing kind of the Black Point area, just kind of making observations around there and adding that to the project. So if you want some extra help, it's a kind of an optional. You're welcome to meet us at Black Point at 3 p.m. on Saturday. But then on Sunday, we're all getting together at 11:45 a.m. at the parking lot of the barn to Bioblitz together. And so that's where we'll all come together, everyone who wants to be part of the Bioblitz, and we'll send groups off to different areas to Bioblitz Sea Ranch together. So that is my presentation. So I will stop sharing my screen. I'm happy to take questions or show more things on the iNaturalist website or the app or things like that. Yeah. I think you're
Cheryl,
muted.
you're muted.
Sorry. How much time should we spend? Is it like 1 hour, 5 hours? What, on Sunday?
Oh, on Sunday, Ailene, I don't know if you have like a time frame, like is noon to 3 is what you're thinking for Sunday?
That was originally what we'd planned, yes. But
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have a bunch of questions.
Yeah.
Obviously, you have to have the location turned on your phone, or it won't work. I wonder if it gives you a message. Turn on your location. It does.
Yeah. So yeah, you can have when you try to make an observation using iNaturalist, it will give you a warning that says like, hey, can you at least share your location with the app like while you're using the app? So yeah, it will give you a warning to turn on your location. Okay,
and then one of the next thing you said, choose image if you happen to have it somewhere else, like in your gallery or whatever. Can you even drill down? I keep all my images in Google Photos. Can I get to that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if they're accessible from your phone, you should be able to. Yeah.
Okay, I can get it on my phone. Yeah. And then let's see. Oh yeah, so I've used it one time since I downloaded iNaturalist app on my phone. I took a picture of something in my backyard and it came up with unknown species, no location. I must have had my location turned off, but it didn't even give me a choice of species. And it was just a plant. I took the plant, looking down on it, looking at the leaves. Is that unusual?
Well, if it says unknown right now, what that tells me is that probably maybe you didn't tap the thing to get the suggestions. You'll usually only say unknown if you save it as an unknown. You can go back in if you have an observation that's already in iNaturalist.
It's right here. What do I do next?
If you're looking at if you open that observation up, there's an edit button. Usually it's a little pencil or something.
Yep, got it.
And then cool. And then you can hit that unknown, the like, what did you see? If you hit that, it should bring up some suggestions for you.
Okay, there you go. That's great. Perfect. That
helps
a lot. And then one last thing that's maybe we should put out a warning to everyone. I hike all around and I also have a yard full of weeds, and I've had tick encounters this year recently. One got on me and embedded. I had another one shortly after that got on me that didn't. I caught it because I was being observant right in my backyard. Then I was hiking one of the trails in Sea Ranch with my brother the other day, and sure enough, another one on my pants. I think it's a bad tick season. That's just, I have not had a year where that happened just like that. So we might want to put out a warning to everybody to keep looking at your clothing. Wear light colored clothing if we get more advanced notices. And anyway, yeah.
Did you take a picture? Did you take a picture of the tick?
Right, you can turn it into an observation.
I should have taken it. I should have saved it. They say if you save it, they can analyze it for Lyme's disease or whatever else. And I didn't, and thankfully I don't have anything 2 weeks later. So
could be a new species of tick.
Yeah, it's killed it quite.
Yeah, we can definitely when we all get together on Sunday, kind of give some reminders about stuff like ticks before people start to head out to Bioblitz. Definitely.
Yeah. Well, some people may not be aware of how easy it is. If you pay attention, you can usually see them. They're pretty aggressive. They're moving, so which helps identify them. So
yeah.
And we'll definitely stay on the trails. but yes,
Yeah, watch out. A lot of the trails aren't mowed. That's where I got one.
Yeah.
that's true.
Yeah, so.
So I have a question. So I can do this. I can participate on Saturday, but not Sunday. So will it still add my observations to the project? Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I could go out of outside my house and observe gazillions of things. So is there any criteria for what to take a picture of?
No, it generally the only kind of recommendation that we make is just wild things, things that are not being taken care of by humans. Besides that, iNaturalist, a lot of people are worried. They're like, oh, what if I take a photo of something, the same thing that someone else takes a photo of? Like, how do we deal with duplication? iNaturalist, you can always think about it like what it's trying to do is build a species list for that day in that place, right?
Mhm.
So if you think about it that way, it's not trying to track abundance. It's basically just showing where species are in this place and build a species list. And so we always tell people, yeah, if you see something super cool during a bioblitz, like, a cool snake crosses your path, like everyone can take a photo of that. That's totally fine. What we're saying is this snake was here today. This is our species list for today. It was found in Sea Ranch today. We're not trying to use it to track abundance of things or anything like that. And if we all take a photo of it, then we all get it on our life list. Like iNaturalist will show you every species you've ever seen. So if everyone wants to take a photo of it, that's great. And then you can have a record that you saw it too. And so, what you don't have to do is go out, like if you have, like that calendula that I used for my observation, like that's growing all over my yard. I'm not going to go out and take a photo of every single individual calendula. Taking a photo of one is like, okay, this calendula was in my yard today. It's part of my today's species list for my yard, so you don't have to go. Sometimes if I'm out like hiking and I see like there's some species that I just really love, like wildflowers that I really love. So if I see it at the beginning of the hike and like a whole field of them, I might take it at the beginning. And then if I come across like another population of it later in my hike, I might take another photo again, just to space out kind of where I'm making those observations. But that's kind of my personal choice. So it's kind of, there's no real rules. Like you could, if you wanted to, go literally take a photo of or I could take a photo of every calendula in my yard. There's no rule against that. It just isn't necessarily adding much new information for that day,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else?
I'm just wondering how we're going to manage on Sunday if we have a lot of people show up with their cell phones, but no idea about how to use iNaturalist. Are we going to need to set aside time to go over the basics at the beginning?
Yeah, if people are there in the beginning who haven't used it before, I'll be there and I'll have two of my staff are coming as well that can help with that also. And then there's another woman, Marav, who also does a lot of bioblitzing, who's planning, I think, on attending as well. And so often what we'll do, either we'll try to make sure there's at least one person who knows iNaturalist going off into the different groups to help people while you're actually out bioblitzing. Or sometimes we'll be like, hey, if you need help using the app, like hang out here just for a few extra minutes and we'll make an observation together so you can see how it works. And then we'll send people off into their groups. Usually it's just all about getting someone to make one observation with somebody who knows how to use iNaturalist, and that's usually enough to kind of get them started to go. And then hopefully others in their group can help them while you're actually out bioblitzing. But we'll divide ourselves up too into different groups.
Right.
And another question, have you or someone here already laid out which areas need to be done? Has that been prioritized?
We
Someone
do
said that,
have,
yeah.
yeah, we have a map of Sea Ranch, and we do have a few trails. Diane and I have prioritized certain trails with diverse wildlife and that we plan to be, it depends on the turnout, which trails and how many we plan to go to. So, it's sort of going to be, we're just going to kind of wing it depending on the turnout, but we will have maps and we'll organize at that morning or at the beginning.
Could I see that in advance? Is there any problem with sending me a copy or I can come down with
The map and the trails? No, not at all.
what's
Yeah.
been, yeah, whatever has been selected. I'd like to know ahead of time.
So Cheryl, all that we put on it, I think, were the public access trails, because all of those are riparian corridors. And so that gives a nice diversity, and the 7 different biodiverse areas that we've already noted seem to have a lot of plant diversity. And so we've marked those on maps in hopes that we'll have enough groups to send people out in many of those areas. So like the hotspot area is one of them that's very different than the rest of Sea Ranch.
Also, the Salal Trail is one of them.
Right.
I don't remember some of the other trails, but those are 2 that I remember. Although the hotspot, I believe, is closed. The road access is closed.
The road access is closed, so that would be a hiking only for people that feel up to that. That would
Right.
also be great if somebody, wanted to cover that on Saturday too, because it might take a little bit longer since we have to hike in. I wonder when that road will open. We might ask if that is about to open. I don't know.
Are they waiting for it to dry out, perhaps?
Probably.
It's probably still wet. Everything's wet.
Okay.
Everywhere I've been, it's been wet a lot. You know.
I'm really sorry I missed something because I had someone at the door, but are you by any chance talking about the hotspot?
Yes.
I was just down there a few days ago. The
Can you
roads,
drive down?
no,
Oh.
not a few days ago. The road's great, but
Mhm.
right at the bottom before you turn to the parking area, there's a giant tree laying across it. So it would be no problem for people to go down, but they're going to have to back up and make a 10-point turn to somehow get back pointed up the hill again.
Oh,
Unless that, I've never checked out that little Saffet parking area. We could maybe from the association get a key and open and let people go over there to park.
Worth a question, easy question to ask.
Yeah. I mean, it's just simple. There's 2 padlocks on that lock. And I know there's been other instances where they've allowed somebody to pick up a key to go down there.
I mean, if everybody just carpools, there could just be,
And parks at the top.
right, but that's quite a hike.
Yeah, it takes a lot of the time that they would be using, there's
Right.
some observations on the way. There'll be some banana slugs or something, but.
Right. But there are, yeah. We'll see. We'll see depending on the turnout. That's an option if for some enthusiastic hikers.
Okay. Well, if anyone wants, I'll stop in the association this week and ask them what they think about something like that. And still could put a group into one car and just park at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
And I could take a look at that Saffet parking area and see if that's clear and what the walk would be. Because then you could just take the trail down to the river, which is even better than the road.
Right.
That'd be great. Is the river, I'm not sure if the river is part of the boundary area though.
Oh, it does end somewhere near there. But yeah,
I'm pretty sure we go up to the river, and it depends on how you look at it. Our water supply comes from out in the middle underneath the river. So our access is from this side, not the other side, but we do go right down to the river.
do you have any idea how far up and downstream we go? You can only walk a little ways easily, both directions.
I'm just not sure about the regarding the iNaturalist site, where the boundary
How
area.
it's bounded, right? That would be interesting to look at how that was drawn on
Right. That's
natural.
something. But I can double check and let you know, Jill and Diane, whether the river counts as part of the boundary area, or can you check the, I'm not sure what the,
Here, let me share my screen really quick.
okay.
I think I helped Alexis make this boundary. I think she actually sent me the actual KML boundaries. I mean, it
Okay.
looks like you got a little bit of the river there,
Right.
Okay.
but that looks like the only spot, and I guess that's where the hot spot is right there.
That
Yes.
is.
Yeah. So yeah, that looks like the only spot the river is actually in the boundary. Like,
Right.
Okay. Well, so yeah, there we go.
iNaturalists won't care. I mean, we can just try to stay on our side of the river that down there. So I
Oh,
mean,
sure.
a few pictures from the wrong side won't matter.
no,
don't-
it's fine.
Yeah.
All of the data is useful. So like, even if it's not within the Sea Ranch boundary, it'll still be part of the iNaturalist data set.
That's
Yeah.
true. That's true. Thank you, Allison.
Yeah, that's great. And Ailene, I'm glad to help out. If we can, squeaky wheel gets the grease on the recording. If you can talk to Jay and admin, and maybe we can get that available, and maybe get the full email list. I mean, I'd like to promote this, and so I'm willing to help. Maybe we can stay in touch by email and see if we can stir up the action.
Okay. Well, they're open today, so if I can get them to, I just need to get the link today. And if I could get the link, maybe we can get it, get that info alert up, get it as part of the info alert for this Wednesday.
Or we'll get that email list. So just stay in touch with me, okay?
Okay, I will. Yeah, no, this was wonderful, Allison. You
That's
did
great.
a wonderful
Thank
job.
you.
So,
Great.
Allison, I had one more question. On your
Yeah.
presentation, you had, there was a screen that you had of all the different categories of things that have been documented at Sea Ranch.
Mhm.
Is there a way we can access that?
Yeah, definitely. Why don't I just put a link in the chat and you can see all the species.
Okay.
Let me open. Actually, here, I'll give you this place. Yeah, let's see. Let me open the observations. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to combine the actual Sea Ranch boundary and the intertidal stuff too, just because like the marine stuff that's been found in the Sea Ranch is also very exciting to see.
Yeah.
Let me move over to the species. Okay, I'm just going to put this in the chat right here in the Zoom. And just so you know, the way that iNaturalist displays species is from most observed to least observed. And so
Okay.
now that I've added the intertidal area to this, a lot of your marine species are some of your most observed stuff. When I was just looking at the Sea Ranch boundary, it was the mule deer that was the most observed species. But now that I've added the intertidal, since a lot of people go there to make observations in the tide pools, you now have some marine species as some of your top observed species. And then if you're looking at that link, the little N up in the corner means that this is a species native to California. Is the little N in the corner. If you see a little E, it means it's endemic, so it's found in California and nowhere else. And then if you see a little pink IN, it means this is a species introduced to the area, so not native to California.
Oh, cool. Great.
Yeah.
So, okay.
So now you can look at a long list.
Yeah, so if you're on that, you can also hit the observations up at the top, and that will take you to the actual photos people have taken. You can click the map button and it'll show you the map of where those observations were made. So there's a lot of information you can get, especially once you start using the website. If you really want to explore a place or a species or things like that, there's a lot of really cool things that you can see using the website that you don't see like on the app, which is why I usually just use the app for making observations. And then I use the website for kind of exploring and seeing what people have seen in places and where species are found and stuff like that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So
Great.
Alison, where were you seeing that endemic or introduced?
Here, I can just share my screen. This might also be because I have told iNaturalist, I've set my location on iNaturalist to California. So we kind of get different views into iNaturalist depending on what we've told iNaturalist about, like where. So here you can see, like, it's giving me this little N up in the corner of that ochre star. Those are letting me know this is native. Let's see if yeah, so on all of these, if I like click this now, if I click this ochre star, you can see I get this banner up here that says native to California up at the top of this species page right here. And that's because I've told iNaturalist that, like, to set my location as to California. You don't have to, you can use iNaturalist to look at it on a global scale, but it might not give you that like finer information about places.
Yeah, mine is not showing that, so that.
Yeah, the default is to have a world view on iNaturalist. If you wanted to change it in your account settings, you can set your place as California. So what this means for me is, because I've set it to California, when I hit this explore button up at the top, most people, when you hit that, it's going to take you to all the observations that are made in the whole world. For me, it zooms to California.
Okay, that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Mm,
Such a powerful tool.
yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of great information once you really start like exploring and drilling into it. Yeah.
How long ago when was iNaturalist created?
It was created as a final master's project at the UC Berkeley School of Information back in 2008.
Wow.
And one of the folks that made it, it was kind of a group of master students who made it together. And one of them is still on the iNaturalist staff as like a co-founder. He still does a lot of the web coding and stuff like that.
Mhm. Fabulous. And you had also mentioned the GBIF. How do we get to that?
gbif.org.
Okay.
It's not just a little more, it's not super user friendly. It's not nearly as kind of like hit this button and see everything like iNaturalist is. It's really kind of a researcher focused website, but you can also drill down and see, it is interesting once you kind of get comfortable using gbif.org, like to see, what specimens were collected in this place 100 years ago, what species were found here, before iNaturalist was made, stuff like that. So.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right, everybody.
Great.
So see you so you're welcome to join Alison next Saturday at 3 at Black Point. Tell your friends, tell everybody to get involved, and see you at the group Bioblitz on Sunday at noon.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alison. All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.